Hey there. Welcome to another hour of strange and dangerous ideas to fall asleep to. Tonight we'll wander through history's most unsettling thoughts, the ones that whisper quietly, long after the world has gone to sleep. Imagine a candle flickering in the vast darkness of an ancient library. Dust hangs motionless in the still air, the scent of old parchment lingering like ghosts in the silence. The walls are lined with shelves that stretch impossibly high, each creaking under the weight of forgotten words, thoughts whispered by long-dead minds who once dared to see the world differently. Now imagine a hand, trembling, reaching for one of those books. The title is unfamiliar. The author's name has been scrubbed from history, but the words inside, if read, might change everything, or destroy everything. That's the choice. And in that quiet, flickering moment, history holds its breath. There is something dangerously powerful about knowledge. Not just the facts we learn in school, but the kind of knowledge that reshapes empires, undermines religion, or topples entire ways of thinking. Throughout history, those in power have feared certain ideas so deeply that they've tried to erase them, page by page, voice by voice. But ideas are stubborn things. They slip through cracks. They hide in memory. They survive in whispers. Tonight, as you drift between awareness and sleep, we'll journey into the shadowy realm of forbidden knowledge. We'll explore the strange and tragic history of ideas that were silenced, not because they were wrong, but because they were too right, too soon, too powerful, too transformative. Let your mind quiet. Let your thoughts expand. Let's begin where the fires once burned and the truth almost disappeared. Throughout history, the act of reading has often been far more dangerous than the act of rebellion. Books have been feared like weapons. Certain texts, seemingly harmless collections of symbols on a page, were treated as existential threats. Because in the right hands, knowledge can be revolutionary. It can wake the sleeping. It can question the unquestionable. But with great knowledge comes great disruption. And those who have held power, whether emperors, religious authorities, or modern regimes, have always known that control over information is the purest form of control. To hide a book is to hide a possibility. To burn it is to burn a pathway not taken. And yet, the more we've tried to silence dangerous knowledge, the more it seems to haunt us, lingering in suppressed memories, encrypted manuscripts, or fragments passed from one generation to the next. This is not simply the history of censorship. It's the history of fear. The fear that if people truly understood the world, they might change it. So what kinds of ideas were too dangerous to be read? Scientific truths that clashed with religious doctrine, political manifestos that stirred the masses, philosophical treatises that dared to suggest a world without kings, gods, or masters. The question isn't just what was forbidden. The real question is why? Why were some ideas treated like viruses, needing to be contained, erased, eradicated? And what does that tell us about the fragility of the systems that tried to bury them? As we slowly unravel the history of forbidden books, take a breath. Let your mind wander to those darkened shelves. Let your curiosity awaken quietly, like footsteps echoing through ancient corridors. We begin not with fire, but with silence. In the year 1559, the Roman Catholic Church published the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the Index of Forbidden Books. It was a meticulously compiled list of texts deemed heretical, immoral, or simply too dangerous for the public to read. The list would grow for centuries. eventually encompassing hundreds of titles, from scientific treatises to theological debates to imaginative fiction. To own one of these books was to risk excommunication. To read one in secret was a quiet act of rebellion. Some were smuggled across borders, hidden in hollowed-out Bibles, or buried beneath floorboards. Others were burned publicly, their ashes scattering like spores of forgotten knowledge. Galileo Galilei's writings on heliocentrism were among those banned. He had dared to suggest that the earth was not the center of the universe, that the heavens did not revolve around us. The church labeled his observations dangerous, not because they lacked merit, but because they undermined a cosmic order that justified earthly hierarchies. The fear wasn't just of incorrect ideas. It was of disruptive ideas, truths that threatened the scaffolding of society. Earlier still, in ancient China, Emperor Qin Shi Huang ordered the burning of philosophical and historical texts during the infamous literary Inquisition. The goal was to unify thought, to eliminate dissenting worldviews that might challenge his authority. Only technical manuals and records deemed useful to the state were spared. The rest were incinerated, and with them, entire schools of thought. Imagine it, scrolls vanishing into smoke, centuries of wisdom lost in a single breath of fire, the silence left behind more oppressive than any battlefield. In Nazi Germany, books written by Jewish authors, Marxists, Freudians, and anyone deemed un-German were piled into public squares and set ablaze. It was not just censorship. It was ritual, a theatrical purge of ideas. They weren't just destroying paper. They were trying to reshape the future by erasing the past. The Soviet Union had its own methods. Censorship was systematic, relentless. Works by exiled intellectuals or defiant poets were banned, rewritten, or doctored to align with official doctrine. In extreme cases, even the authors themselves were disappeared, not just from society, but from the pages of history. But censorship has not always come in fire and fury. Sometimes it arrives silently, with redacted lines, with books quietly going out of print, with search results buried under digital noise. In modern times, the mechanisms are subtler, but the goal is often the same. Control what people see, and you control what they can imagine. To understand the danger of forbidden knowledge, consider this. Every banned book is a mirror someone was too afraid to look into. A mirror that shows an unflattering truth, a future that might have been, a freedom that remains unclaimed. The most terrifying books are not the ones filled with horror, but the ones that make us question everything we thought we understood. So why do forbidden ideas persist? Because they live in the margins. They whisper across generations. They resurface in dreams and metaphors, in half-remembered quotes and anonymous manifestos. You can burn a book, but you can't unthink a thought. And often it's the very act of banning that gives an idea its power. The idea that knowledge should be hidden, even destroyed, raises uncomfortable questions about the systems we live in. If a government fears a book, what does that say about its confidence in its own legitimacy? If a religion bans a theory, does it betray a fear that faith alone may not be enough? What happens when the truth is not simply inconvenient, but incompatible with the world we've built around it? There's an old saying, the truth will set you free, but sometimes the truth dismantles everything. It unravels comfortable lies, disturbs the sleep of entire societies. And so we hide it, not because it's false, but because it's true. When people begin to read, truly read, they become dangerous. They start to ask questions. They begin to notice contradictions. They recognize injustice. Reading is not a passive act. It's an ignition. And so we see again and again the impulse to extinguish that spark before it becomes a fire. But ideas have a peculiar quality. Once released, they echo in whispers, in symbols, in code, in art. The more they are repressed, the more they evolve. The forbidden becomes the sacred. The dangerous becomes the divine. There is also an ethical question. Should all knowledge be accessible? What about nuclear secrets, biological warfare, or detailed instructions for harm? Is there a line between freedom and responsibility, and who gets to draw it? These are not easy questions, but the moment we entrust that line to those in power, we risk creating a world where only sanctioned truths are allowed, a world curated for compliance, a world where curiosity becomes a crime. Take a moment here. Breathe in deeply. Now imagine, what truths are we hiding today? What knowledge is quietly being buried under convenience, distraction, or fear? What ideas are we afraid to read because we know they might change us? We began our journey tonight in the hushed halls of forbidden libraries, surrounded by books that once threatened empires. We've walked through fire and silence, tracing the outlines of truths too dangerous to speak aloud. But there is another kind of danger, not in what we hide, but in what we seek. The desire to create a perfect world, a society without pain, without crime, without imperfection. It sounds noble, even comforting. Yet some of history's darkest moments were born from that dream, the dream of utopia. In the next segment, we'll explore how the most well-intentioned ideas can spiral into catastrophe, how the pursuit of perfection can quietly become a blueprint for tyranny, and how the scariest thing about utopia is how close it can feel to paradise just before the fall. Close your eyes if you'd like. Let your thoughts settle. The next chapter awaits quietly, just beyond the edge of reason. Coming up, the idea that utopia can be engineered. Picture a world where everything is exactly as it should be. No pain, no hunger, no confusion. Everyone knows their role. Every street is clean. Every home is warm. Every decision efficient. At first glance, it feels like peace. A long exhale after centuries of chaos. A place where nothing is left to chance. But linger in that silence long enough, and you may hear something unsettling. Not harmony, but absence. No laughter, no dissent. No unpredictable joy, just order. Cold, absolute order. Tonight, we enter the dream that became a nightmare, the idea that a perfect world can be engineered. The notion of utopia is as old as civilization itself. From ancient philosophers to futuristic planners, humans have long imagined worlds free from suffering. The word utopia, coined by Thomas More in the 16th century, literally means no place, a beautiful irony, for perhaps it was never meant to exist at all. What makes this idea so dangerous isn't its malice, but its purity. Utopian visions begin with noble intentions. Feed the hungry. End war. Unite humanity. But to achieve perfection, imperfections must be removed. And when people become imperfections, cruelty follows. So tonight, as you drift toward sleep, we'll follow the winding path from idealism to ideology, from paradise to prison. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts soften. Let us walk together through history's most well-intentioned disasters. Our story begins not in the 20th century, but in ancient Greece. Plato's Republic imagined a society ruled by philosopher kings, individuals trained from birth to lead through reason. Justice would prevail not by personal liberty, but by every person fulfilling their predetermined role. Farmers farm, soldiers protect, rulers think. All is balanced, efficient. Plato's vision was not just philosophical, it was architectural. He laid out a blueprint, a city where individuality is sacrificed for harmony, where lies are told if they benefit the state, where art and poetry are censored if they stir emotion. Even family ties are dissolved because loyalty must belong to the city, not to kin. It was orderly, it was rational, and it was terrifying. Fast forward a few millennia to the Enlightenment, the age of reason. Human beings began to believe they could shape society like clay, through logic, through science, through planning. Jean-Jacques Rousseau spoke of the general will, a collective spirit that, if properly interpreted, could guide a nation to virtue. But who interprets the will? Who decides what's virtuous? By the 19th and 20th centuries, these questions gained urgency. Karl Marx, witnessing the horrors of industrial capitalism, proposed a world without class, a society where the workers controlled the means of production, free from exploitation. It was a radical hope that history could be reset and a new, just world might rise from the ashes. But revolutions, like fires, are hard to contain. In the Soviet Union, Lenin's dream of a worker's paradise was soon transformed by Stalin into a brutal machine. The 5-year plans dictated every detail of economic life. Farms were collectivized, cities were reshaped. People were categorized, useful or suspect, and those who opposed the plan or simply failed to keep up vanished. Millions perished, not in pursuit of power alone, but in pursuit of order, of progress, of a world engineered to perfection. In Mao's China, the Cultural Revolution aimed to cleanse society of its past. Old ideas, customs, habits, and culture were to be eradicated. Students turned against teachers. Families turned against each other. Loyalty to the utopian dream eclipsed loyalty to people. History was rewritten. Identity erased. Then came Nazi Germany, perhaps the most chilling example of engineered utopia. The vision was of a pure race, a unified nation, a destiny reclaimed. Everything was designed, the uniforms, the parades, the propaganda, and everything was categorized, Aryan or not, useful or not, human or not. The Holocaust was not chaos, it was bureaucracy, a nightmarish efficiency in the name of purity. Each of these regimes believed in a better world. Each claimed to serve the people, and each demanded absolute control to get there. The terrifying truth is this: utopia often requires obedience, and obedience requires surveillance, silence, and fear. Even today, traces of this impulse remain. In some nations, social credit systems monitor behavior, rewarding conformity, punishing deviation. In others, urban planning and algorithmic governance optimize life at the cost of spontaneity and unpredictability. Tech utopianism, once the realm of dreamers, now walks hand in hand with data-driven authority, smart cities, predictive policing, AI systems deciding what you see, what you hear, what you believe. the dream of a better world curated by machines. But who defines better, and who is excluded from that vision? Let's take a quiet moment to breathe. Ask yourself, if you lived in a world without suffering, but also without choice, would you call that freedom? This is the paradox of engineered utopia. The more we try to remove suffering, the more we remove the things that make life real. Struggle, difference, surprise. To design perfection is to deny unpredictability. And yet, without unpredictability, can there be joy? This tension reveals the deep contradiction at the heart of utopian thinking. We want to build heaven, but we use the tools of hell. History's engineered paradises often demanded total sacrifice, not from the designers, but from the people. The ideal citizen must conform, must suppress desire, must become part of the machine. And if they don't, they vanish from records, from memory, from maps. But it's not only in dictatorships. Even democratic societies flirt with engineered harmony. Through mass surveillance in the name of safety, through algorithms that shape our thoughts in the name of engagement, through sanitized histories that keep national myths intact. We are told it's for our own good, for unity, for efficiency, but perfection is a sterile promise, one that cannot bear the weight of human complexity. There is another risk. When we chase utopia, we stop listening. Dissent becomes a flaw. Debate becomes sabotage. And slowly, the very messiness that makes us human is treated like a disease. In chasing perfection, we forget how to live with imperfection. Consider Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, a fictional utopia where every desire is met and every discomfort eliminated. The result? A society so numb, so placated, that meaning itself disappears. No wars, no hunger, but no love, no depth, no soul. In our pursuit of peace, we may sacrifice the very things that give life texture. Let your mind drift here. What would a perfect world look like? And would you feel alive inside it? We've wandered through the blueprints of engineered paradise and found the shadows hiding in its corners. From ancient cities ruled by logic to modern systems ruled by data, the quest for a perfect society has often led us to ruin. But what if we've misunderstood the problem entirely? What if the real danger isn't in how we build society, but in the very nature of reality itself? In our final chapter, we'll explore one of the most disorienting and quietly terrifying ideas in modern philosophy and science, that reality itself may not be real, that everything we see, feel, and experience might be part of a vast simulation. So close your eyes, let the noise of the world fade. We're about to ask, what if life is just a program, running quietly in the dark? Coming up, the simulation hypothesis. There is a certain quiet horror in the thought that everything around you, the people you love, the ground beneath your feet, the stars above, might not be real, not in the way you think they are. That perhaps reality is a carefully constructed illusion, and we are participants in something far stranger than we've been led to believe. This isn't a new idea. In fact, it might be one of the oldest. Ancient philosophers, mystics, and religious texts have long suggested that what we see is not all there is. Plato's cave allegory spoke of people chained in darkness, mistaking shadows for the truth. Hinduism describes the world as Maya, an illusion that distracts from deeper realities. And in more modern times, science and technology have only made the question more urgent and more disturbing. Tonight, in this final segment, we'll explore the idea that reality might be a simulation, a dream, a projection, or something else entirely. It's not just a question of what's real. It's a question of who is asking, and whether that self, too, is part of the illusion. So lie back. Let your thoughts loosen. Let the edges of the world blur as we begin. Let us start with a simple question. How do you know you're reawake right now? The texture of your blanket, the hum of your fan, the weight of your body, all of it feels real. But dreams feel real too, don't they? You've had them. Moments where you were sure you were awake, only to open your eyes and find yourself somewhere else entirely. The idea that reality isn't real begins with doubt. Doubt in the senses, doubt in perception, and doubt in the trust we place in our own minds. Philosophers like Descartes wrestled with this centuries ago. I think, therefore I am, he famously concluded, not as a celebration of thought, but as a last refuge. Everything else might be an illusion, he reasoned, but the very act of doubting proved that something existed, even if it was just a mind floating alone. Fast forward to today, and the question has returned armed with new tools. Take the simulation hypothesis, the modern digital age version of this ancient fear. Popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, it suggests that if advanced civilizations can run incredibly complex simulations, and if they have any interest in doing so, then it is not just possible, but likely that we are living in one. After all, if a civilization creates millions of simulations, then statistically, the odds that we are in the one base reality are slim. Think of video games. Think of artificial intelligence. Think of virtual reality. Already, we are creating digital worlds with simulated physics, weather, personalities. What happens in 1,000 years, or 10,000? Could a simulated world become indistinguishable from a real one? And if so, how would its inhabitants know? The unsettling truth is, they wouldn't. But simulation isn't the only model. Quantum physics offers another. In experiments, particles behave differently when observed, as though reality itself is influenced by consciousness. The famous double-slit experiment revealed that light acts like both a wave and a particle, depending on whether it's being watched, as if the universe is waiting to see what you want it to be. And then there's the holographic principle, a real, scientific proposal suggesting that the three-dimensional universe we experience is actually encoded on a two-dimensional surface at its edges, like a cosmic hard drive projecting the illusion of space. Whether dream, code, or cosmic projection, the core idea remains. What we take as reality might be a construct. And worse, we may never know the truth. If reality is fake, then what does that make us? Are we avatars, simulated minds, dreamers within a dream? And more importantly, does it matter? You see, the idea that reality isn't real doesn't just challenge our senses. It shakes the very ground of meaning. If this is a simulation, are our choices our own? If the world is a dream, is suffering still suffering? If the stars are illusions, can we still make wishes on them? For some, the idea is liberating. If reality is constructed, maybe we can reshape it. Maybe pain can be transcended. Maybe death is just a glitch. But for others, the thought is suffocating. If nothing is real, then what's the point? What is love? What is memory? What is purpose, if all of it is scripted or synthetic? And yet, you are here, listening, feeling, thinking. Even if the world is fake, the experience of it is not. The ache of loss, the warmth of laughter, the quiet joy of watching the sunrise, these things may be illusions, but they are ours. In a way, the idea that reality isn't real forces us to examine what is real. Not in the external world, but within. You become the center, the anchor, the only thing you can trust. So take a breath, feel your chest rise, let it fall. In this moment, real or not, you exist. You are aware. And maybe that's enough. As our hour together comes to a close, you've walked through 3 of history's most unsettling, powerful, and dangerous ideas. That knowledge can be too powerful to share. That utopia in its purest form can turn to tyranny. And now that reality itself might be a fragile illusion. These are not ideas meant to scare you, not in the usual way. They are meant to wake something deeper, a sense of wonder, a sense of curiosity, a question that lingers long after sleep has taken you. If the world is not what it seems, then what else might be possible? Thank you for spending this time drifting through the darker corridors of human thought. May your dreams tonight be filled with strange questions and quiet answers. And may you find peace not in certainty, but in the soft mystery of not knowing. Sleep well.